Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Well, welcome. Can everybody hear me? I think everybody can hear me. Guys,
Yep.
welcome today. We got a special show. It was last minute. I'll admit this got thrown together in literally the course of 2 hours, but a patch hit. Now we got to talk about the patch because it hit. So we brought the expert from Pochven over. He's over here. The expert
Oh,
from
hi.
Pochven's over. His name is Maldavius. He runs the biggest player organization in there. We have White Orchid.
Strybug.
I keep pointing over here, but we have White Orchid also here, way far over there. We have Orin Bowrider, a wormhole guy. We have Phantomite, a low sec guy. I don't even know where he came from. I just heard of this guy today. And then we have Jurius. Jurius is high sec. We have everything. We got a null sec guy. We got a low sec guy. Wormhole, Pochven, high sec, because that matters. I'm just kidding. But we have shit to talk about, and I guess I'll let Maldavius start by explaining to us how this affected Pochven. What's going on?
So prior to this, you needed 1.0, 3.0, and 7.0 standings to move through different areas of Pochven. So the grand triangle of 27 systems, 3 of them needed 7.0, and the rest needed 3.0 or 1.0. The change today made it so you need no standings to move through any of the systems except for the home systems. So if you fill them into Pochven now, you can just move around the triangle with absolutely no impediment, which is extremely strange. I don't like this change whatsoever. I think it's going to increase PvP in the region dramatically, but it's completely destabilized absolutely everything that was going on there, and it's going to kill a lot of content for people.
I guess that put it up. Why do you think it's going to destabilize everything? Can you explain a little bit more?
We actually had quite a lot of people in there that had bought into the Triglavian invasion. People that really liked this kind of content. They sat there and ground out standings. They were fighting with each other. We had frenemies in there. We were fighting with groups like Rote Capel, the Russians over in Como, like Cat for You. A lot of really cool groups that had come together and decided, hey, we're not going to kill each other's citadels, but we're going to have good fights and learn from them and make a Thunderdome. And we loved it. It was super fun. People that were really like invested in the Triglavian stuff, really liked the lore, really liked the content. And now with this change, it's just miles and miles and miles of people that don't care about any of this coming through and doing this. Rote Capel has already said that they're going to leave. They're just going to use this place as staging, so we don't have our cool frenemies that we have anymore. So no more engagements with them. And it's mostly just like been reduced to right now gate camping and just holding the systems away from just the random throng of people coming through. Because you can get here from anywhere. So imagine Jita if it was nullsec, just constant flow of people coming through. It's cool in some respects where we have a lot of PvP now, like this weird kind of PvP, but it's bad in some respects where it's just like, what's the point of the region now? We have no idea. What's the point of grinding standings now? What's the point of buying into Triglavian content now? There really isn't a point to any of that, frankly. It's really devastating to the players that are most interested in this kind of content because they sat there and bought into the invasion, meaning they can no longer go to EdenCom systems all over New Eden. They can't do this because it's so
can
dangerous.
I interject
Yeah.
and just quickly
Sure.
ask? These people have grinded for this content which they can no longer enjoy. What is the content that they grinded for that they now can't do because of this change?
So what they were trying to do was do a buy-in for a specific faction, right? And be able to have access to that faction space. So they sat there and did this standings grind, which usually takes between 3 and 10 days if you're going crazy hard on it, right? Like just going absolute balls to the wall trying to do this kind of stuff and just grind standings. By doing that, they had a sense of buy-in, of ownership, of I am part of this faction. I get to, enter their space. I can use these gates. I gain an advantage, a home field advantage in this area. That's all gone now. So what does a Triglavian player gain for joining that? They gain less access in HiSec. They gain EdenCom systems are now dangerous to me. Where's the benefit? What's the point
So you're
of joining
saying
Triglavians?
that this buy-in is just a feeling of accomplishment and kinship?
Currently it is now. Before it was a game mechanic allowing you more access to this space and better moving through this space. You had a home because of the buy-in that you had if you were a Triglavian player. Now all you get for joining Triglavians is losing access to sections of HiSec. I don't think that's good. I think that's really, really bad for a lot of players.
I think they're two separate things. I think that the problems that you have in Empire versus what you gain from it are two things that are actually separate. I don't think that. I still don't understand what this advantage in Trig space was, aside from the way that you've described it, essentially a frenemies or coalition of people who just have kind of semi-arranged fights in there.
So the semi-arranged fights was something that we put together to add extra to the system of Pochven, or the region of Pochven, rather. The only other thing that you gain access to is there are dread sites, there are PvE sites that appear around the triangle in Pochven, and because you had the 3.0 standing, you could move around that triangle and get to them easier. If you didn't have the standing, you had to use wormholes or filaments to hopefully land in the correct systems to run that content. So the buy-in gave you a direct gameplay advantage for doing that kind of farming and doing that sort of stuff, which directly aligned with the rest of the invasion, which most of the invasion was repeatable PvE content. So you have repeatable PvE content throughout the invasion, and then repeatable PvE content after you get the buy-in from the standings. And that's gone now. There's no point to it. There's literally no point, no advantage.
So the advantage is access to farming that other people don't have access to.
That is an advantage. Yeah, that was an advantage. That's not anymore. The other advantage would be you can go into the stations, which is still a thing, and like gain access to using those. But that's kind of whatever. Like most people don't care about that, frankly. Most people are like, we're out here. The other minor advantages are you can drop pocos. Neat, like not that great. Like for most people, they don't care about that. And using the gates was the big one. They could use the gates, which means they could traverse the triangle and gain access to additional content either through mining or through doing those PvE sites. And finding fights. A lot of hunters come out here and do small gang activity. And they, now they have to compete with everyone else who never had the buy-in. And what it's really done is it's left a large number of players, because we've got about 700 in our alliance, and then there's so many more that are around the triangle. It's left those players with a feeling of disillusionment on CCP's behalf, where it's just, why did I do this? If CCP is just going to give it to everyone, what the hell am I been doing? And a lot of them are just like, I don't even want to play now. It's that's not great. That's really a bad thing.
Okay, I have a question here. So in your interview, you spoke about making it easier to access Pochven, right? I'm curious what your ideal version of this looks like as compared to the way CCP implemented it.
Honestly, I'd like to see something for the Triglavian players as an advantage in the space, no matter what it was. I actually had a write-up originally about opening the gates in a way that would make sense, either putting diamond rats on it or putting something on it that would allow them to gain some kind of home field advantage. Because right now there isn't one. There's no benefit to having, a Triglavian player or being a Triglavian player whatsoever now. There's absolutely none. So I think you've split me across two cameras.
I have, dude. He just he vanished, and now I have to fix it. I'm working on it.
Oh,
Gotcha, no worries.
hello. Let's see there. But yeah, I mean that's the thing that's really weird to me is like we had a benefit, a game progression path forward of I'm going to join this faction. Here are some clear benefits of joining that faction. Here are some clear benefits and some drawbacks where like I'm going to lose access to high sec area stuff, but I'm going to gain more access in Pochven, more ability to move around the triangle, more ability to move around New Eden because each one of those Pochven systems connects back to a case-based location. And now what we have is, well, everyone gets that. So why would I be a Triglavian player? I'm just going to lose access to sections of high sec. Like, what's the point? There's only drawbacks now, is what I'm saying. There is no benefit.
Yeah, if I may, is some of that benefit not, these last however many months of farming some of the most lucrative content in the game? No?
If you want to farm the most lucrative content in the game, sure. There are some serious exploits that we've been dealing with in terms of farming that content. The content itself is very lucrative if you can get out there and do it. That being said, you have to fight against all the other parties that are doing it because it's a small region. You have to fight against the exploit that's going on where people can steal ticks from it because they can. All they have to do is land on grid, shoot something, and they still get a payout whether they're in your fleet or not. Very cool. CCP, please fix this. Another one right now is, and this is what the exploiting group is doing now, they found a way to make it so the sites don't spawn at all, ever, for the entire day. So what happens is it shows up, you land on grid, and there's nothing there. So for 24 hours, there's not even a site to do. So that isn't even a thing, really, right now, to be honest with you. It's just not.
I mean, that sounds like a bug to me, personally.
It
might not be until, they clarify it, obviously, but...
honestly, I'd like CCP to...
Is it really the most lucrative content in the game, though? Like,
I
said one of.
I was gonna say, is it better than wormhole roaching fleets? Because that's the thing.
No. It is very lucrative. So to give you raw numbers on this, if you have 15 players in your fleet, you're getting about 200 million ISK liquid per player if you can do the site. Then you have to find it where it goes in a random 27 systems. So it's going to go to a random other system, which means you have to traverse through all those gates. You have to fight through all the NPC fleets that are on there, which they contain drifters that can just delete you off the grid at 200 kilometers. You have to make sure that you land on grid, fight any other fleets that are going there. So there's a lot of competition for that kind of stuff. There's no way to just crab. You can't just crab. You have to think about all the PvP stuff along the way. So it's not easy ISK. It's hard ISK. And if you're comparing it to like ISK per hour, let's say that you got it perfectly. Let's say that you did absolutely perfect spawns where it's only in the same system. It's about 1 billion ISK an hour if you can do that, which is every time it respawns, 1 in 27 chance that it goes to any system in Pochven, including the home systems. If you guys don't have 7.0, they can't get into those systems easily. So it's a lot of extra stuff.
So it's just the one site that is spread throughout the region.
There's actually 3 of them. However, that means that you have a maximum amount of content. So if you have 3 fleets running at the same time, you're going to get attrition. If you have 2 fleets running at the same time, you can usually maximize this. But that means you have a maximum amount of content in the entire region of about 30 players, frankly. And that's really kind of whatever. You've got 27 systems with 30 players worth of content and no other content to do. There are no relic sites, there's no hacking sites. The other PvE sites pay out 6 million ISK per player and require about 1 billion ISK on grid of ships. Like, there's really no other content in the region. It is that one ISK faucet, and that's it. And that's not great. It's not healthy.
That 200 mil per site that you mentioned, is that per player or is that for the fleet?
That's per player if you don't have any what we call seagulls, which are people exploiting. Most of the time when you do a site now, because of the amount of players doing the exploit, we get 50 million ISK per site, per player. Because they use between 10 and 15 other players that are doing the exploit. So they're honestly not lucrative to run right now. It's been a really, really big problem. And we've gotten nothing but radio silence from CCP.
I'm screwing everything up, guys. I'm trying to fix stuff while you guys talk. I apologize.
That was my fault. I had to drop out for a few moments.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it all sorted.
We've seen that in Alliance taxes too. Like, it's really hard to run an organization when you only have one source of content as ISK faucet, in the region that you're in, and it's impacted heavily by an exploit that reduces the income by like 90%. It's not good.
Now, pre-show, you mentioned something that I want to hear you talk more about in front of the rest of the community,
sure.
Which is tell us about upwell structures and jump ranges.
Oh, yeah. So you can't actually put any more citadels in Pochven. The ones that we have now are permanent, and if they are lost, they're lost forever for the rest of the game. So there's no new infrastructure that can go up. The only new things that you can place are POCOs, and they take an amount of standing for your entire corporation. So it is a amount of buy-in that the whole corp has to do, or you have to make a holding corp to do this kind of stuff. You can bridge out of Pochven, but you can't bridge into Pochven. So this ends up making it logistically kind of weird. You also can't have capital ships, you can't build capital ships internally, and you can't jump capital ships in. This includes freighters. The wormholes don't have the mass required to do capitals either, so they've restricted it that way. So it's subcaps only.
Wish you said, what is this exploit? I will go make a video about it and get it fixed.
Dude, I wish. It's bad. I don't want to release the exploit method stuff on this. Like, I don't think that's great.
I know which one you're talking about, and the very best I can tell you is that several of us have brought it to CCP, and from my opinion is the person that we brought it to is taking it very seriously at the moment. But other than that, it's a bit of a black box to us as well beyond that point.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, because it demoralized our line members in a way that we lost about half of our FCs for a month. They didn't want to play anymore. If you've got like a really bad exploit like this that's impacting quite a lot of players, and suddenly they just don't want to play the game anymore, that's really devastating. And it's something I don't. I'm surprised they're so quiet.
The only way that people should be able to have an effect on this kind of activity is by going and fighting and taking it from you, not
Agreed.
By doing this. Yeah, exactly. It's clearly unintended. It's clearly anti PvP, what these people are doing, and so it is in desperate need of a focus of a fix. And this won't come as any surprise to you, but from sort of being able to be a bit further inside than other people, I really just generally feel that so many issues with Pochven are a lack of time allocated to the developers. They get reallocated elsewhere, and it's the story of EVE for the last decade, isn't it, really?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I'll give you an example. When we first entered Pochven was first formed, the Dread sites were actually there. That content existed, except it didn't work for over a month. The first iteration of it, if you beat the Dread, if you actually went and did the site, you lost Triglavian standing and the site didn't complete and pay you. They fixed that, and then they made it so that the site just never completes and never pays you and keeps spawning NPCs, keeping you on grid forever until your fleet dies. These iterations kept going like 6 different times until they finally fixed the site, but people were so burnt out on the content not working, they didn't even want to run it anymore. We didn't start running them until like 2 months in. On top of that, another big one was the home systems gates didn't even work. There's actually a very large structure called an anchorage in each one of the home systems. It's really freaking cool looking. If you haven't seen one of them, use a home filament, go check them out. They're really neat. But they're on a giant dead space pocket, at least they were. And what would happen is you'd land on grid in this dead space pocket 400 kilometers away from the gate, and you had to slow boat to the gate because it's dead space. Like, some of this stuff is just so mind-boggling to me because I've been in the gaming industry for 16 years, and I see bugs like this that are clear, like, you didn't even check to see if the content worked before putting it on live servers with a basic sanity check of, I can run this content, I can land on this gate, was not done. That's insane to me. It really is.
Well, once again, so this feels kind of like a slap in the face to the players who have grinded this stuff, right? What do you think they can do now to fix it? Do you just want to see them revert the changes? What do you think they can do?
Can I get something out of the way first that's quite relevant to this? I think I know exactly why CCP picked this option here to remove the standings from the main ring. So a month or two ago, CCP members came to the CSM and they specifically wanted to know our thoughts on the apparent lack of traveling and combat and action going on in Pochven. And so we told them of the exact same issues that we had told them 2 weeks before the release of Pochven, which they didn't act on at the time. And I specifically said to them that if the major thing that people talk to me about when I ask them why they don't go to Pochven is the way that movement works and the standings required to be able to commit to go in there. And so I specifically said to CCP myself, if you can't come up with an interesting way to move around Pochven, you might as well just remove the standings from the gates. And it looks like they just took that rather than perhaps the encouragement that was there to try and think of keeping it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how that could happen. And to be honest with you, I think it's ruined something that was very interesting, like in EVE, and I think it's disillusioned a very large number of players. I don't think that's your fault for giving that feedback. I wish they would have gone with a more interesting option.
I mean, I guess, I think that I'm right. If there isn't an interesting method, then removing the standings is the right way. But I'm sure that there are plenty of ideas that could have kept it interesting.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, it seems to me like Pochven's still sort of like a work in progress, right? So for all we know, like, yeah, this could be step one. This increases the traffic, but the standings could also play into some other mechanic later that makes it worthwhile.
Yep.
But the trade-off is that it
same
doesn't
note,
matter for the second.
Yeah.
On that same note, I have a bit of a logistics question, which is, for those of you who are living there, when you need to bring shopping in from Jeddah, you've mentioned you can't jump into the space. Capitals can't use the wormholes. You can't take freighters through. So were you running everything through DSTs coming in from Jeddah, and did your alt pilots that are flying those have to grind standings before?
No, we don't just use DSTs. We use, DSTs, orcas, things that can carry large amounts that are not capital ships. Filaments. You can go straight from Jeddah into Pochven, and then you can have a courier fleet go with it, or you can go in through the wormhole network, because we know where all the wormholes are and how they connect. One of the things that's really interesting about Pochven is, unlike most wormhole space, every one of these systems has a high-sex or a K-space static, right? And that K-space static connects it to where it used to be on the map within 3 jumps. So if you're talking about, say, Senda, it's where Senda used to be in the world map, but any of the systems within 3 jumps could have a wormhole that goes into Senda. So we know where these are. We know how to map them. We control them pretty frequently, and routing that makes it very easy to move things inside. The problem that you get only as a Triglavian player is once you get that DST or that Orca inside through a wormhole, there's Edencom rats on the interior, because when a wormhole opens to K space, Edencom rats come into our space, and Triglavian rats go back into K space. So this is it's something we have to manage all the time. So we put a fleet on the wormhole, kill all the stuff, get the logistics guys in, let them drop off their stuff, and get them back out. So it is a group effort to move stuff into here. It is not easy.
Sounds like nullsec of old.
Yeah, I actually like that gameplay, though. I think that is fun. It brings us together to do something together in a way that is interesting. We have to overcome the space. We talk about it a lot internally as space hell. It's like we live in space hell. This is super fun to live in space hell. It's some of the hardest place to live right now. And, that's nice. It binds us together. We do cool stuff. We get better as pilots, and that's good. The thing that really kept us together through all of this was that, is making sure to overcome this place. And I tell you, CCP made this change, and this change does suck for us. We will adapt and stick around as long as we possibly can, if not forever. And if they do kill our citadels, if people come through and wipe us out, we're going to live in the NPC stations like a fungus and never leave.
I mean, something that when it was first told to us before it was in the game, something that I really hoped Pochven would be essentially a piece of capitalless nullsec, where you would have only have some limited options as to the sizes of fleets you could get in one go, and there were things worth day tripping therefore to make some money and hopefully fighting over and then coming back out again. But I suppose that also sounds like the original vision of wormholes. CCP never intended people to live in wormholes. They wanted people to do expeditions into them. Yep. But if they had intended that with Pochven, then it's a bit weird that they would have left all the citadels and stations behind in it. So I guess they do intend people to live there.
Yeah, I mean,
to be
the
fair,
thing is
CCP has a history of blowing up best decisions.
Well, yeah, but you can't put down new structures. So once the citadels are gone, they're gone. So I don't know if that's.
Well, there's still going to be stations aplenty there. So
yeah, there'll still be stations for sure, but.
I think the thing that's really depressing about that, though, is you've got, let's just take a look at industrial activities in the region, right? You've got extremely high-value ore in here. You've got the Triglavian ore throughout everything. It's very, very good. The only place that you can, after all these citadels die, we have the only Tatar and Pochven route. The only one. And once that dies, that means that the only refining that you can do in the region is going to be in those NPC stations. And it doesn't compress. So how are you going to get that stuff out? What they've done by making this a change like this, without allowing us any type of, building up or being able to buy in as Triglavian players, maybe add new citadels, whatever it's going to be, they've put a death date on the region, where it's going to be wiped out and just be people traveling through this subway system without ever actually engaging in the content. And I don't think that's good. I think that's
they haven't put a death date on it. There's stations there to live in. It's perfectly easy to live in stations.
The stations don't work unless you have the Triglavian standing. You get nothing.
There's your reward there's your reward for being able to have ground those standings.
Why would I use that station when I can pop out the high sec through the wormhole and literally just do it in a high sec station right next door? If there's a static wormhole, what's the problem? That's not a benefit. Like, that's what I'm saying is like the region is diminished through that change. There's no point to do it.
But there's the unique thing for the standings, which there's the unique thing reward for the standings.
The reward for the standings being that you can fit inside of a Pochven station that's pretty lame. I'm going to be honest with you. Like that's
pretty key to living anywhere.
Yeah, that's
pretty key to living anywhere.
Important.
Sure, but think about it this way. I told you that the K-space wormholes are static, right? Like we know where they're going to appear. So why would I do that? Why would I go through the extra effort of living inside of that NPC station and grinding that as a standard player, not as people that are super invested like us, right? Why would a normal standard player do that when they can literally live in Erica or a Choshi and it's right there, able to get into the system?
They wouldn't. So that's an inherent advantage for someone who's willing to put in the work.
You just said the gates were camped by all sorts of things as well, so there's another huge advantage.
Wormholes are not.
Yeah, the wormholes are not camped. Some of them are camped by rogue drones and things. Is that the wormhole from wormhole space ones?
So the only reason the wormholes are hostile right now is frankly because we're in here. The reason why is until someone attacks the rats on the wormhole, they don't aggress anyone. They're completely neutral to all parties, no matter what. So you land on the wormhole, you go through, nothing will touch you. unless someone is farming them on the inside. The only reason these wormholes are hostile is because we're in there farming. The moment that stops, it's not hostile anymore.
Why don't you just go from wormhole to wormhole and TP it to aggro the drone, whatever, and then when they come through, they blast them?
I mean, yeah, I guess it works. We could totally do that. Like, we control. I mean, we control the hell out of the region if we want to, but like.
I mean, in the spirit of this being a healthy debate, I think that you've massively minimised the advantage of living in a station within that region.
I could see the benefit you're saying. It's just, as someone who would want to, maximize that efficiency, I wouldn't want people to grind standing. Like, if new players were coming in now, I'd be like, why would you even grind standing? Don't do it. Go live in our high-sec stations right over here.
But
It's
you were
much
just talking
easier.
about how good it was that people had ground standings and had something to show for it, and now you're like, you don't want
They
people to have
don't.
to grind standings.
There's no actual gameplay benefit to doing it. Landing in the NPC stations is not enough.
Except
of it.
living in a
you
station
don't
and
have to. You
fitting.
don't have to move through the wormhole every time you want to get in and out.
That is such a
don't have to
minor
scan it
benefit,
down.
frankly. It is such a minor benefit that it's not something
Fitting
that I really
is such
care
a minor benefit. You're
I
saying
think it's
fitting
really-
is a minor benefit.
I think you've hyper-focused on something that, to us as people who live in the region, we frankly don't care about it at all.
You
Well,
also
'cause you
get
have the
to
stations.
you also get to repair in system too. Pretty nice.
Yeah, I think you need 5.0 for that, by the way.
Does that mentality of living in a station change if at some point all of these upward structures are no longer there?
Not really. I mean, the thing is we always talked about, like, we'd probably stage out of HiSec so that it'd be easy to do, and then go back into Pochven and go run content in there and do that kind of a
But
thing.
you also
because-
just called it a death date on the region when all the structures are gone.
Correct. We're the only people that are bought in at that point. Every one of the other people that's bought in here is leaving because they have no reason to anymore. Like I just told you, Road Capel's leaving. They're the only other people that
Isn't there
we get
a
to fight
fuckload
and
of
have
money
good
to be
fights
made in there? And like, wait, isn't there still an inherent advantage of being able to quickly get through these systems to actually run these sites that are very valuable?
with. That is the advantage, and that was the advantage of having standings, and it's not necessary anymore.
I thought it was only
Now you-
specific gates they didn't allow.
No, literally, the way that
It was all
Pochven is set
gates.
up is it's a triangle like this, and
Yeah.
all of those gates required standings. You don't need them anymore, so now
Yeah.
you can just get anywhere in New Eden for free. That's the problem.
So what if they added standings back to just those 3 gates?
what do you mean 3 gates?
Those 3 gates that you can move before the triangle. What if you needed 7.0 for literally just those 3 gates? And
All of the
everything
gates
else was
required-
free.
No. Mel Davis, you were talking about 3 systems, that one of which would have a guaranteed wormhole too.
Yeah, sorry.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What are we
I'm
talking
sorry.
about? I think
so,
we're all confused.
She said there's 3 gates you can go in between, right? To get to these systems quickly, right? So there's 3 systems.
Every system has 2 gates. Those 2 gates go to the next system in the triangle. So there's 27 systems in all, and 3 of them are on the outside, and those ones have 2 gates each. All the
Okay.
other ones have 2 gates to
Okay.
the next one in the thing. So if you're in Wirashota, for instance, which I'm at right now, you can go to Ala or you can go to Senda, and both of those require standings. The one to Senda requires 1.0. The one to Ala requires 3.0. Does that make sense?
Well, not
Yeah,
anymore,
so
but
all of those required standing. They don't anymore. So the advantage of buying in before was being able to traverse this network and go around to different areas of New Eden very quickly. The advantage now is stations. That is a greatly diminished. Like it's something. Yes, it is an advantage. Absolutely, totally is an advantage. It's just one that most of us don't frankly care about because we don't see it as that massive of a big deal compared to what it was.
okay, so what I'm trying to say is why not just let only some of, like, say the 1.0 gates that you need standing to get through? Why not just take that to the side, let those gates be free, and then all the 3.0 and up ones, let those go be the way they used to be before this patch?
Honestly, it'd be fine to me to have some kind of a buy-in somewhere. The only one that they kept, right, is the home system.
Thank you, Zanus.
There's 3 home systems. There's Niarja, there's Kino, and there's Archie. Those are the 3 home systems. You can use a home filament to land in any of those for free, or you can use their wormhole to get into it for free. Otherwise, the gates take 7.0.
Oh, okay. So
Why even leave that in? Like, what's the point?
Sir,
So can I? So sorry. Can I clarify something? So you grinded the standings in order to run these PVE fleets, right?
Not
Right,
just
and
PvP
that
fleets,
was-
but be able to move around the triangle, which
Yeah,
lets us
but
get to
that-
other
that-
player areas of New Eden.
For sure. But I mean, it seems like the main benefit was the PVE because that makes it worth your time, worth your ISP per hour.
I would
So-
say that's the ISP benefit, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in order to then hunt you, you necessarily also had to grind the standing, correct?
Yes, which is something I didn't like. I wanted I loved the idea of eventually opening up the triangle in some way. Just there would still have to be some kind of an advantage for people who bought into the content. There isn't now.
Well, there's still
Yeah.
some
They've just-
advantage for you too, because
because
you're
you can
one of
just
the
dock up.
you're one of the few groups with capitals in there as well.
So anyone can actually dock. That isn't restricted. Anyone can dock. The thing that's restricted are the services inside of the station. So you can't repair, you can't do things like that.
Exactly, but so yeah, you can dock, you can repair, but someone else docks up, they undock again, their ship is still,
Yeah.
equally damaged,
So,
right?
I
So
guess
so
the
that
advantage is
it is a
advantage in
PvP
station
advantage.
games, like
Yeah, right.
It's all
Because
right.
because
You're
not gonna have-
minimizing the effect of how useful the station services are again.
Well,
no, I think what it is you guys are minimizing how much this actually changed and how much we lost as a result of this change. The idea that before, if you bought into this content, you could go anywhere in New Eden absolutely rapidly. You can go from, Amar to Jita in 2 jumps. You could do this kind of stuff because you bought into the content, bought into the way that Triglavians moved around space. Throughout the invasion, they moved through filaments, they moved through being able to warp themselves around, and we got to do that kind of stuff. Now that they've taken that away, we've lost that kind of gameplay, and it's accessible to absolutely everyone with no buy-in.
Can
That
I-
is
can
why
I
the
jump in for a
stations
second?
are
Yeah.
the least amount of concern for me. I absolutely don't care about them.
don't
being
you
competitive.
guys
So,
still have
Davis-
a home field advantage of having capitals, like in
I
systems
mean, I
in
guess.
there?
Like, the only reason that we have those
count that,
capitals-
to be honest.
Yeah,
I
but
wouldn't count
nobody
it.
likes
That's
to
not a
get
game.
capitals in there.
I wouldn't. Yeah, but I wouldn't count it in the numbers that he'll have. I wouldn't count
Yeah.
it.
Okay, all right, that's a
Well-
valid
So
point.
I want to ask.
Once
I wanna
those
ask
die,
a
they
further
die,
clarifying
right?
question. So further clarifying question, and bear with me for a second. So, implicit advantages that have now been lost,
Yep.
or that have been changed. You can dock in stations there. You can live in the stations if you have to, but you have uphill structures for now.
Correct. And, those will die one day.
Pochven provided an opportunity if you're going from point A to point B to take a whole bunch of jumps off of your route.
Yep.
Functionally. And you have higher value ores there and higher value PvE. But a lot of the intrinsic benefit of that to the people who live there has been lost because now anybody can farm. So they've
It's
turned you
not-
into low sack.
See,
They've
Jury,
turned you into low sack.
I don't think that's quite the point. I don't think the point is that anyone can do the PvE now. I think I'm going to compare this to the
Anyone
Roasting
can
Fleet that
fight
I've-
over each other for the PvE now as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
not really. The
I'll
exploit is still there. When they fix the
Oh.
exploit, we'll fight over it.
That's a different
yeah,
issue.
that's
That is
a
an issue, but it's
Yeah.
unrelated.
As far as pure game mechanics, I can compare this exactly to the roaching fleets that I'm dealing with in wormhole space right now. It's generating massive amounts of ISK, and this shows up in the MER, where you're seeing this massive ISK generation in Pochven at this really, really high barrier to entry in order to hunt you.
Yep.
Right? So I can't necessarily see this as a net negative overall because you're generating just so much raw ISK that in order to then hunt you, you either need to get lucky with the filament, number one, with your entire fleet, or number two, your entire fleet has to have the standings already. And I don't think that's necessarily realistic, right? Because like how many groups have a 25-man, 30-man, 40-man fleet all with their trig standings? So this
To be honest with you,
perfect
we had
PvE.
we had on average like 5 or 6 major groups that were in there fighting over them all the time. Like it's pretty common. You can look at
Fighting over the
cohorts and see, like,
PvE because previously
Yeah.
you called them frenemies.
No.
Yeah.
We still fight over them. They're frenemies. We work together when there's times of people coming in trying to kill citadels because they're permanent. If you lose a citadel, no one ever gets access to it again. Eve is a long game with lots of plays.
So you're stating
Sometimes
now
if
that there is no cooperation so that you can all farm safely.
No, between the groups,
Okay.
no. We fight each
Okay.
other for that. Absolutely.
doesn't
we
make
drop
sense.
on road all the time. Like they drop on us all the time. There's
Okay,
fights of that
but-
all over
okay,
the Killboard.
But that's only one
Okay.
group. What about the other ones?
To be honest with you, there isn't another group that can stand up to us in there. Most
All
of them.
right.
leave.
So that sounds like perfectly safe PvE farming to me.
The thing that I'd like to kind of get to is I think DTM mentioned that in your post, Maldavius, you said you wanted some kind of change to the requirements to get in. Now, whether that's everyone can get in or not, if you want more people in there, what what were you trying to achieve by that? Did you want more PvP content in there? In which case, is this not just going to achieve those goals, right?
Yeah, no, this is definitely going to increase PvP in the area. The thing is I wanted some way for them to get in. What I was really hoping for was a gameplay mechanic to bypass the gate in some way. Like, imagine if a group had to go farm Edencom or farm Triglavians in HiSec. They got a token. That token let them hack the gate. They could get through the gate and they'd come and fight. That would be really cool. Some kind of a gameplay mechanic where they're actually engaging with the Edencom Triglavian factions. They're doing something with that and then able to go and invade Pochven and do that without the standings. Right now, or what it was before, if you had no standings, you couldn't use the gates. I didn't like that at all. I talked about that quite a lot. Just having the gates locked, a barrier, a brick wall, was not good for the region because it denied us fights, it denied us PvP. Just having them completely open for no reason, it's way too much. It just allows anyone to get there. Because think about it this way. Any group in the game right now, any group from any area of space, anywhere in EVE, can take a 15-man filament and have a 15-man group in Pochven right now.
Okay, but what you just said is perfectly contradictory, right? Well, where is the balance between that? Do they have to have some standing? Do they have to have...
No. It wouldn't be a standing requirement.
Okay, sorry. In your perfect world, you just said you didn't like how it required standing, but now you're saying it's too much. So where is that balance in your perfect world? Because
like I said, something to hack the gates. Honestly, like if you have buy-in, you should be able to use those kinds of systems.
But that's just warning to you. Even if hacking only takes 15 seconds, you can just have some eyes, and it's like, oh, these guys will be coming through the gate, but they're delayed by 15 seconds.
No, it wouldn't even be that.
Okay. Oh, sorry,
I
have a specific PvE question. Do you use smart bombs on your PvE boats?
You can't use them on the gates if you're talking about doing pipe bomb.
Okay, but you're actually in the site. Are you going to use smart bombs?
Inside of the
PvE site, are you going to use smart bombs? No.
Nope.
So you don't have a red timer. So at any point, you can yeet your entire fleet out.
Yep, and I don't think that's good gameplay either, frankly. I don't think that filaments should be able to be used inside of PvE sites, and I don't think that filaments should be able to be used when you're in combat with NPCs, and I think that denies PvP and is not good for the game.
We're absolutely in agreement on that.
Yep. I don't think it's good. And that is absolutely the standard right now is if your fleet gets dropped on, you filament the fleet out. That sucks. I'd rather see a fight.
I think I agree with you with the sites stuff there. I think that there have been a couple of times where I've been in null and, come through a gate, and especially with these new NPC spawns, wanted to use maybe a filament to get out, and you can't because an NPC takes a pot shot at you at the gate, and that kind of sucks. But yeah, in sites, I think that probably is something that I don't think you should be able to.
Nope.
We lost him.
Yeah, he just died.
I think
he died.
So young.
I personally think you shouldn't be able to use Pochven filaments if you have a combat timer.
I agree completely.
This is a different question. This is all a different question that we all agree on.
I'm sorry. Getting back to my point. I'm sorry. Everything you've said just sounds like this kind of PvE is perfectly safe. Like, I mean, I've seen the fleets.
Good luck doing it. Like I said, good luck doing it.
I've seen the fleets die, but it's very, very few and far between, and like that's why I can't help but draw the parallels to the roaching fleets we're dealing with in wormhole space, because they just don't get caught.
Moldavius, can I just ask for something a little bit that I know that this sounds a little bit aggressive, but quite honestly, I'm having some trouble here. Can you link a battle report of a notable fight over the PvE in recent times?
Go find one.
Because that sounds aggressive, but I just want to see what this kind of fight looks like,
Yeah, we lost a 12 billion fleet to Rotgebel not too long ago. I can show you that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the mass golems die, right, Phantom?
Oh God, yeah, I was like 15. The 15 golem guy, yeah, he got dunked.
Come on! That wasn't going to be a fight. That was going to be trap and gank. Come on.
It was 15 golems, dude.
Okay, yeah, great. You got an expensive kill. You got an expensive set of kills, but that's not a battle. That's like, yes, we got them. Eat them.
While you're looking for that battle report, can I ask a question? For those who don't live in Pochven and who haven't spent a lot of time there, can you relate to the difficulty and the payout of the higher end PvE to Dead Space sites? So like about 10 of 10. Like how do they rate in difficulty and payout?
So the difficulty is actually really interesting in the Dread sites because you have a timer. You have 3 minutes before the dread actually reinforces, and then if your fleet screws up in some way, if you get dropped on and you leave the site, it stays reinforcing every 3 minutes forever. It just keeps getting stronger. So you have to beat that timer, and if you don't, it's going to kill your entire fleet, which means you have to bring enough tank and enough DPS to beat that timer, and that took a lot of testing and learning how to do that kind of stuff. So most of the issue with Pochven, most of the difficulty is actually moving through those systems and making sure that you're not going to get dropped on while running those sites, putting scouts out, making sure that all that stuff is going on, and then the exploit stuff on top of it, which hopefully CCP will fix and we won't have to deal with anymore. We're still going to run that content. We're still going to try and run the PvE. It's going to be considerably harder now. I don't like the idea of a crab empire at all, but I do like the idea of having players have buy-in in their space when they're trying to align themselves with an NPC faction. Ripping that rug out from underneath them, I don't think is the right answer. I also don't think the right answer is having perfectly safe PvE like you guys have been describing. That's why I don't like the crab empire stuff. That's why I wanted more fights in here. It's why I talked about potentially opening the gates in some way, just not like this. This is not good for them.
Well, I mean, that what you just said is, in my opinion, the perfect judge about whether or not any kind of PvE in this game is too safe, right? You're still going to run it. Too lucrative for the amount of risk it has. You're still going to run it because it's just worth it to you. And I think that's a good judge that, okay, maybe this change was maybe needed.
I don't think the change was needed in this way, though. And this is the reason why. It's not about, making the space safer or making it more dangerous. It's about disillusioning the players that bought into it. There needs to be something for them. The only thing that they gain access to right now realistically is the LP store, and a number of the items in the LP store cannot be obtained because the items that go into building them do not drop in the game. That's really it. That's the buy-in for the Triglavian player. That's the reward for the Triglavian player is a broken LP store.
That goes into my earlier comment where it seems to me like Pochven is incomplete in some way.
Yes.
Right. So it seems to be that maybe at some point it will be worth it. That it's just the space is not done yet.
Totally agree. Yeah, and that's the thing is we've been holding on to that now for half a year. We've been here in the invasion content now for half a year, waiting for CCP to make it so that all of this stuff is complete. We've gone through all the iterations, all the bugs, all the non-working content. We fought through every single piece of that, and the reward at the end of all of this is more broken space and more not well thought out.
We have two game developers in this chat right now.
Okay.
Hello. People who work in that field, what is your feedback looking at this as game developers going, we have 6 months where they push something incomplete into production and haven't finished it and haven't finished patching the problems that are there. And now they're introducing significant changes to it before they've finished all their sprints. What do you have to say about that?
I don't think that they investigated the player impact as much as they should have. I don't think they investigated the soft part of this, the non-big data part of this. In actuality, it's probably going to be better for the region overall to have an increased amount of PvP. That's always good for EVE. More PvP, more drops on people, more destruction is generally a good thing. The problem that we have here is the soft impact on the players and their morale as people who have bought into the content. They feel disillusioned, they feel left behind, and they feel abandoned. And that's not a small number of players.
So I'd like to challenge you on one thing. In my personal opinion, obviously I don't live in the space, so I don't have that personal connection. But had I been living in Pochven this past while, I think I would actually welcome this kind of thing. But for one reason, right? You have a certain population in Pochven. If you had to just take a random guess, what would you say the population of Pochven is?
About 1,000 total.
Okay, let's say 1,000 people. Okay, so that's 1,000 people. That
not all at one time though. You can only have content for about 30, maybe 45 max.
Okay, so let's cut the number in half. 500 people, right? So CCP has to allocate time in conjunction with that number, right? So as soon as you bring massive amounts of more people in Pochven, and you said earlier today that the population has just exploded in Pochven. So that, in my view, that necessarily says, okay, now that more people are engaging with this content, now that there's a massive population in Pochven, CCP can allocate more time to it, and it can get done. So in my personal opinion, I think that's that outweighs any kind of disillusionment for the short term, where the standings only get, as you say, only get you access to station services.
So that makes sense if it was you were just entering now. And the reason why is because you have a group of people that have endured every one of those failures in design along the way. All the times where like Pochven got released, we lost 70% of our players' online status, 70% of our player engagement for like months because Pochven just didn't work. The Dread sites just didn't work. There was no content in here. People hated the game so much that they stopped signing online in a 900-man alliance. That's incredible amounts of player loss. And
Sir.
many of them never came back. So you've got this as a history of just really odd changes, kind of half thought through stuff, and things that don't work for the players that are actually engaged in the content. And that's where the problem is. It's not just this one flashpoint change, it's a history of changes.
You have my sympathies because CCP has the same track record in wormhole space where there's been numerous changes. The surgical strike that killed the faxes, that killed the whole heavy armor meta in wormhole space, the rolling changes which killed another heavy aspect of wormhole space in rage rolling, that just nuked our population as well. So like you have my sympathy for that, but I think at the same time you have to look at this from kind of like 9,000 feet up and say, like, is this going to improve the health of Pochven over the long haul? And yeah, it upset the players. Yeah, it did all that.
Oh, yeah.
Is it going to get Pochven completed?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree that it's going to be better for the health of the game for the health of Pochven overall. 100%. But by doing this over and over and pulling the rug out from underneath these players, they're going to hate it. They're going to hate absolutely everything that CCB does, and they don't feel like they're heard, and it's growing more and more and more that they're frustrated. And what I'd really like, honestly, is CCB to have a dialogue with the people who are actually living here and engaging in this content, because they're going to lose them. We already see tons of players bailing out, not wanting to engage in the content anymore. And the more that this goes on, the more that they put, the Triglavian stuff on the back burner and not really care about this and not talk to the players that are actually engaging in it, the worse that's going to get. So, yes, it is better for the region at the end of the day, in the long run. But for the players who are invested, it's not better. It's not better for them right now. And it hasn't been better the whole time. I feel like we've been testing on production.
Well, Davis, I got to say something quite positive, and
sure.
I've been looking at some of the battle reports people are posting in Twitch, and we've been debating this. You're kind of selling it to me, but in its current form with the gates being open, I kind of want to start taking some fleets in.
Yeah, do it.
It looks that, definitely.
Yeah, but it's I wouldn't bother if the gates were essentially locked to us, because then it's just a giga home field advantage.
That's what I was saying, is there needed to be some kind of counterplay, but just opening it up completely is like...
I mean, I'm looking forward to it now that the gates are open.
Yeah, no, bring a fleet. We love to fight. I mean, that's the thing. We're always going to fight. We're always going to want to fight. Everyone in here does, except for the people who are leaving now. But that's the thing, is subcap PvP.
Sweet. So this achieved its means.
Yeah. No, that's good.
The people who don't want to fight are leaving. Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I think that stuff is good. PvP fights are good for the region. The problem is what this has done to the players and their investment. Because look at it this way, right? You've invested in all this stuff. You've gotten your standings. You've ground this kind of stuff out. What's your reward now? I know that you're talking about the stations as being this big, massive reward. For the majority of players,
it honestly is. I don't want to go over that again, because being able to use the fitting services is huge.
I'm talking about a different kind of player than you, though. Most of the players do not see that as a massive advantage. Where are they getting their advantage?
Yeah, I'm talking about players who like to fit their ships.
Other than saying that those players are blind,
or repair
what
them.
Is their advantage for doing this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, again, as another player, maybe will day trip into Pochven and maybe take a few fights, for example, but I'm not moving in if I can't fit ships in stations. You guys have your citadels, you have the luxury at the moment, right?
And can Mr. Frosty in chat stop saying that a mobile depot negates the advantages of a station? That's one of the thickest things that I've read in Twitch chat in a long time.
Repair off of a mobile depot. I have a question.
Yeah, you can't repair your hull.
Sure.
Like, who brings hull logic?
Inside of Pochven and the way it works now, do you think this is the first time in EVE Online where we've seen some sort of other award be expected out of PvE other than ISK or resources or materials? Do you think that this is Would you trust CCP again if they try to do something where like, oh, we're going to give you something at the end of the story? I guess is really where I'm going with this.
It wasn't just PvE. So if you engaged in the phase 3 of the invasion, the way that it worked is you had to do PvE to push that star to first liminality. That first liminality would turn the system into low sec. The second liminality, final liminality, would turn it into null sec. They were PvE engagements that started with PvE and ended with low sec and null sec PvP. The reason why this was so good, the reason why this design was incredible, is you had a whole bunch of people from high sec that had never done anything in null sec, never done anything in low sec, never done PvP before, people that were minors for 10 years, engage in it, and suddenly they're fighting in PvP in null second conditions. That is great for the game. That is absolutely phenomenal.
But if you just didn't do anything, the systems would flip.
Correct. If you actually not the same in every system. If it was a Caldari system, the Caldari would lose.
Yeah.
If it was an Amar system, the Amar would win.
Yeah.
It was based on the faction that was going. It was because they would counter the Triglavian.
But a huge portion of this was doing PvE, right? Like, say there was just not somebody who was interested in fighting over a system, right? Like, you would just be PvEing, right? Like, I agree that there's like some sort of expectation of PvP, but there should be, as far as I'm concerned, anywhere in space, right? But the bulk content which turned these systems was PvE, right?
It was managing to do PvE under hostile conditions. That's what it was.
Yeah, so
it was PvE under hostile conditions.
Does that mean fighting to maintain control, or does that mean running away when somebody came to PvP?
Fighting to maintain control. That's
Brilliant.
what we did. I was
so maintain that rhetoric through Pochven now, right? Is that not?
So the thing is that what they've done is they gave all those players. You know what? To be frank with you, if they would have wanted to do this right, they gave them too much in the beginning. They've given them a carrot, and now they're taking it away and giving them a stick instead. They need to give them something as a benefit for putting in all that work.
See, but that goes back to my previous question to you. What was your perfect view of what they would have done with the gates? Where, okay, something that's going to still allow people to hunt without having to, go on a PvE fleet before you go PvP, or having things open, right?
Like I was talking about, the way that I brought it up before, there was two really good options. Like you could put diamond rats on the gates that aggress on you if you don't have the right standings. That immediately gives a slight home field advantage to people that are Triglavian bought in. They can move through the space easily. But if somebody is a hunter and they're using cloaks, they can still get through that space. It means that if you bought into the content, you still get to work with that faction, still have some kind of advantage. The other way is introduce something that allows them to hack the gates. It'd be really interesting. Like you find out somebody's hacking the gate, maybe it takes 30 seconds, maybe it takes 60 seconds. You can go and drop on them and fight back against them. There needed to be something to get around the gates because a brick
by
wall is
NPCs
bad.
that are going to frag you.
Sometimes. So the way that this works is anytime a wormhole opens in Pochven, which they all open inward, you have to find them from the outside. We only get the exit nodes on the inside of Pochven, which is obnoxious. What happens is if it goes to nullsec, we get drones spilling into Pochven. If it goes to J space, we get drifters spilling it. If it goes to K space, then we get if it goes to K space, then we get Edencom. So it's nullsec, J space, and K space, like general high sec, low sec area that'll do this kind of stuff. So what happens is the Triglavians, they always lose in every one of these engagements, and it's partially an AI bug. Sometimes they kill themselves. Really cool, nice. Please fix that, CCP. Stop Triglavians killing their own units. Thanks. But the other issue is those just keep spawning, and they're outmatched by the drifters. Drifters just wipe them all. So when you go into a system, there's a pretty good chance that on the other side of that gate is 20 drifters, and your lunch is gone, dude. Like absolutely gone. They will kill you from 200 kilometers and delete you instantly. They even target you when you're cloaked and kill you in the warp bubble. In which I've gotten ships replaced 3 times now for that. So please fix this, please. So it's not easy to move through the space. It is dangerous to move through the space, even if you had standings. Now it is dangerous to move through the space, and there is no need to have a buy-in with the Triglavians in order to do so. That's weird. That's a strange change.
Okay, but this just exacerbates my point about the increased population. So now that CCP has an increased population base for this space and increased use, it has more advocates, more people that would say, "Oh, I'd like to see all this fixed." If they're losing a DST after a cloak trick, they're losing a blockade runner as it gets shot, while cloaked. Like, yeah, you're going to start having CCP start to take notice, start to allocate more man hours to this problem, right?
I think
that's inherently a good thing.
I think that's true for the long run. I think that is absolutely true for the long run. As more eyes on this means more people are willing to look at it and see if it's fixed. I think the problem that we're seeing, the problem that we're having as players who are bought into this, like our whole alliance and all the people that are actually here, is that we've already been giving this feedback and it feels like it fell on deaf ears because the only thing that has happened in response is we're opening all the gates. Good luck. That's a really strange change considering all the things that we've been saying, all the feedback that we've been giving, all the things that we've done throughout the invasion where we said this is wrong, this needs to be fixed. And all we get in response is radio silence and wide sweeping changes that don't do anything that is positive for those players in the short term.
I mean, like I said, you're preaching to the choir. Wormhole space has had the same thing happen to it numerous times, and
I'm not surprised.
Ultimately, like I think this will be a good thing because you are increasing your population to the point where CCP is going to necessarily have to take notice.
So I think, if you see that as the benefit, right, that would work in pretty much any other type of space. Let's take a look at it for Pochven, right? In any other type of space, you can add more citadels. You can add more infrastructure. You can do this kind of stuff. You can rebuild after someone comes through and sweeps it. We can't do that. These citadels are permanent. You can't add new ones, regardless of the standing that you have.
Do you think that was not the intention? Right?
Oh,
do you think maybe CCP intends that?
Do you think Pochven would be at its best if it had 0 citadels and stations at all in it, so it was exclusively somewhere that you could only day trip to?
I think that's probably what their intention is with this change. I don't know if that's better.
Do you think that would be a? Okay.
I don't know if that's better. The thing is the people who like the Triglavian content, they like living here. They like doing this kind of stuff. They like having.
I mean, this change isn't intended to make this a day tripping only area because it's full of stations and citadels still.
Yeah, but that's the thing is it's
not related.
It's one of those things where it looks like they want to increase aggression in the region, increase PvP in the region, and that's going to lead to eventually the citadels falling. Like that's just kind of how that goes. Someone's going to bring in a 500-man fleet and wipe stuff. There's no real way around that. We know how Eve works, and it's good to not have permanency in Eve. I honestly think that if that's the intention is just to wipe out all the player-owned citadels, why let us have them in the first place? Are
you attacking? Are your group attacking the citadels of the other groups?
No, we don't do that. Not? So generally the way that we work for this is because we consider citadels sacred in Pochven because they can't be replaced. We like fighting each other, but if anyone...
Surely that's a brilliant reason to go and kill them, though, so that you can be dominant.
No, that's not a good way to do it. We want to have fights. Because in any other type of space...
So it's ranged fights?
No. In any other kind of space, if you wanted to fight people...
It's a non-invasion pact.
Yeah, not really, though. Not on paper. All of it is literally, hey, we like fighting with these people. They're pretty cool.
You're agreeing not to kill each other's homes and push each other out.
If their citadel gets destroyed, we don't get to fight them anymore, and Pochven loses content. Because they don't have a staging in this system anymore. If they lose that citadel, it's gone, and we can't fight them.
That sounds like a non-invasion pact.
Sure.
That's the definition of an NIP.
If you want to drill down on it being a non-invasion pact, sure. But at the end of the day, if their citadel gets wiped out and they get moved out of the region, we have less targets and we have less stuff for our hunters and we have less content for us. We never wanted that. So we fight each other and we don't kill each other's citadels. And if someone from the outside tried to kill them, we band together and stop it. That's what we've done since the beginning.
As you mentioned earlier, you have sort of like a requirement for getting into your main corp and having the standings. You said there that you had a secondary corp for people who are grinding up standings, and then you finally have the standings. So that means everyone in your corp has perfect access to the structures, right? So getting the like you said, you're going to be, in your own words, roaches, and we're not going to leave even if our structures get killed. So it's just moving to the stations, right? It's not kicking anyone out.
We can absolutely do that. And yes, there is a disadvantage in not having tether and all the things with station mechanics and all the stuff there. That being said, we still have to have the standings grind. We still have to have the it is. We still have to have the standings grind for the players that want to engage in Pochven, because as we were talking about, stations have hard locks on that stuff. Unfortunately, what this has done is it's actually made the standings grind worse. The old standings grind was literally just to have 3.0. If all of our citadels are destroyed, if Pochven is completely wiped clean and it's only NPC stations, you need 4.0 or 5.0, I think, in order to use all the stations fittings. Like all the things that you want to do for your ship, like repair it and refit and everything like that, needs 5.0. The current level that they needed was 3.0. So you've made the standings grind worse, and then also removed all of the benefit of doing standing grinds other than that. That's
so. I guess the barrier is just going to be: are people still going to do it?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah,
We're going to have to tell over the
that's
next
what
several
we'll have to
months.
see.
We're still going to be here. We're still going to do this stuff. We're still going to engage in this content because we're heavily devoted to the Triglavian content. But under these conditions, they have made it worse.
I mean, I'm just on the whole, like, I mean, this change has come in today, right? And I know everyone's obviously entitled to opinions, but I said the same about these, these reorganization and redistribution and scarcity changes and so on. But I don't think, if Rote have come out and gone, oh, yep, sorry guys, we've made the decision based on the patch notes today that we're going to move everything out. I think that's a little premature. Like, I think personally, I would probably try and figure out what something's going to actually do to a region before I make that decision. That seems a little bit of an overreaction to me.
Probot actually hit what I've been thinking about for a little while now. Like, a week to grind standing is like nothing compared to shit I've done in WoW. In all actuality, not that it's like a particularly good thing for EVE Online. It's supposed to be a sandbox. But
I'm not saying the standings grind is bad. I'm saying that if you have to go to 5.0 to get, the stuff that you need instead of 3.0, it's just worse. It's not the most devastating thing in the world to grind something out in an MMO. I like the idea of grinding standings and joining a faction. That's fun.
Someone in the chat said it's 3.0 to use all the services except industry.
Is it actually 3.0? Let me go dock up and find out.
Yeah, I think maybe the how to get standings and what standings you need are kind of two things, because if this change remains and the gates are open and you need 3.0 standings to do to get into your stations, to fit and repair and so on, and maybe they made the gaining of standings a little bit more enticing, interesting, perhaps, that maybe a few more people would do it, but I still don't think a huge amount of people would bother to do that. In reality.
Yeah, I don't think a huge amount of people are going to bother to do that because the rewards technically just aren't there. Unless someone's like, I really, really, really want to be a Triglavian. I really want to live in an NPC station inside of this space. Like, the rewards just generally aren't there.
Yeah, I mean, but if they want to do that, then they will do it, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, players are always going to find something they want to do like that. They're always going to do that kind of stuff. They're always going to be, into the types of things they want to be into. It's more over the fact that the ones who are already invested are feeling slighted.
Yeah, and I think the metric is ultimately going to be, are people still going to do it? And if they're still going to do it, then obviously it's still worthwhile enough to have the standings or to grind the standings. So I guess that's going to be the metric we're going to have to judge it by.
I'll just say that's a really bad design methodology. Yeah, we're going to break it, but if people still play it, was it really a loss?
Okay, so the way that it is 1.0 for fitting, 2.0 for repair, 3.0 for reprocessing and jump clones, and 4.0 for industry in order to use the NPC station. So it's gated based on your amount of standings.
You can't... Jurius, was that you that said that see what happens is not a good design methodology?
Yeah, no, honestly, fuck around and find out is a terrible way to design your...
Yeah, but what if you thought it was broken beforehand?
That's how every single tactic and meta in EVE Online has come about.
You don't say.
Yeah, like as a developer
the fact
myself,
that CCP's been broken since day one doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. Yes, there's a wonderful world that's come out of that, but that's at the effort of the players. That's almost in many cases in spite of CCP's design efforts.
Do you want CCP to decide on what fittings ships have?
No, obviously not.
Seems
yeah,
like a rabbit hole.
I mean, yeah.
I'm down, dude. I only want to be able to fly a Heron. That's it.
I'm very confused about that interaction with you there, Jurius.
Yeah,
what?
Messing around and finding. No, my point is like, okay, CCP has fixed it, right? And Moldavus has said that grinding the standing was the Pochven people's full send. It was what they did to fully invest in the space.
Yep.
Right. So the thing is it still going to be worth that?
So let's look at the current rewards, right? And some players are going to want to do this, but more of our players are not going to care about it. I've already been talking to our alliance, talking to people. They care less about the standings. We actually have someone in our alliance that's at 9.99, by the way, the Triglavian standings. They've been farming it for months. They're like, oh, I'm not even going to get 10 now. Like, they've literally just like, So what's the point? Like, if they're going to do this with standings and minimize them, what's the point of me doing this? It's not even special anymore. But if we look at this, docking takes negative 0.05. So if you've killed like an Triglavian, like you can't dock anymore. And then if you just kill something else, you're going to go back to being able to dock. LP store is negative 0.01, which is even more like, what's the point? Just make it 0. Fitting is 1.0, repair is 2.0, jump clones swap only, because you can't jump clone into Pochven because it's wormhole space, is 3.0, reprocessing is 3.0, and manufacturing is 4.0. So you're really just saying, I want you to gain a benefit in Pochven of being able to use a station that is one jump away via the normal wormholes, where NPCs don't even attack you unless you aggress them first, of all of those features that you're already getting that one jump away.
So
That's
jury has called this breaking it, right? But it's so what you're saying is it really doesn't matter to 99.
We're only 4 hours into it.
What I'm
Yeah.
saying
Into
is
the game.
the standings don't matter anymore. They don't.
Yeah,
We're
Yeah,
four
so-
hours into the standings change.
The
yeah.
other,
So
the other,
we'll have to say, well, we'll
the
have to judge by the metric of, are people still going to do it? Is that one jump? Is scanning down the wormholes? Is that effort putting into doing that?
the
worth
other side of this, though,
standing?
that I don't think anybody here has asked, is what's the other side of this? And by this, I mean the entire Triglavian invasion, the whole event. How many people are still running Edencom content?
None, and that's a problem. That's actually one of the things that I'm really upset about. I have it in my whole CSM platform. Edencom players basically have nothing. They have it.
Oh yeah,
worse
they got
than we do.
shafted. They
got
have it worse
completely
than.
shafted.
Who
They have
uses the
absolute.
chips?
We got broken content. They got nothing, and that is, that's rough. That's really rough. I don't like that at all. What we wanted out of Pochven when we found out it was going to be a thing. We wanted to be able to have this cool Triglavian space and have Edencom players be incentivized to come fight us in here and carry on that rivalry that we had, that red versus blue that we had throughout the invasion. We had all these awesome fleets of like Edencom pilots and Triglavian pilots yelling at each other in local, making memes, generating like all kinds of just like, videos and songs and all kinds of stuff. It was awesome. It was a really cool like cultural thing in Eve. And the moment Pochven came out, it was like, it's gone. Everything's gone. Doesn't matter anymore. Nothing for Edencom, and like Pochven's broken. So it's depressing, frankly. Like I miss what we had in that moment of time in Eve. And maybe that's just like old man Eve, right? Like, oh, it's a bitter vet. You lost this cool thing that was going on. But I think CCP dropped the ball and lost the momentum on something that was very cool for the players.
I think ultimately we're just going to have to, honestly, I don't think we can. I don't think anyone can really say whether this is, going to radically affect what goes on in Pochven yet until it actually starts happening. Like,
Sure.
2-3 weeks, a month down the line. I mean, I still think it's a good change because I really hate the idea of having gated content in Eve behind a boring activity. I really don't like that personally, but yeah.
For sure.
So, Oren,
I
a
wanted there to
question
be counterplay. Something to do, not just a brick wall.
to compare wormholes and Pochven. What would be a comparable move to opening the gates to Pochven for wormholers? Would it be, wormhole anchors, things that make it so that wormholes don't close?
No, I think it was the rolling changes, right? Rolling is now infinitely easier, and it used to be. It opens up wormhole space so significantly, right? So it allows you to, catch more people. It allows you to roll into places faster, and makes it more dangerous to do PvE. Except for the roaching fleets, who just don't care. They don't roll off holes. People claim, PvE in wormhole space is perfectly safe because you can just close down the systems. Well, the big problem child of wormhole space, these roaching fleets, don't do it. They don't care. As soon as the combats show up on D, boom, MJD, 9 seconds, they're gone. Hull rolls behind them as they jump out, nothing you can do. Right? So I think the rolling changes is probably the best thing, because it gives the wormholers back something that caused that that population dip. After the rolling changes, after the fax changes, wormhole space population just took a dive, because everything good about living in certain areas of space, living in C5 space, the reason you moved up to high class space was so that you could roll with capitals, and that change just nuked that, so no one wanted to live there. Like, that was one of the main reasons you lived there, and that was gone. So giving us back the rolling changes, making everything more dangerous, getting into systems faster, I think is probably an equivalent change. Thank you, by the way, Phantomite. he heavily pushed that change, and we are very thankful for it.
That's awesome.
CSM could really do with a wormhole guy on so that they can better push these things as well.
I agree. I think I don't know. I think that this goes a little bit farther than that. I'm definitely on Will Davies' side in the sense that when I look at this, it's, to me, making it this easy is a step too far. It's like putting beacons on high-sec wormholes. It's like, just make them show up in space. I mean, Pochven gates show up in the overview.
Yeah. It's also really strange to me because it's like, it's conflicting design. Why even keep the standings on the home systems? What's the point of that? Like, if you have a 7.0 on the home systems, but you can get in through wormholes and filaments anyway, like, what if you're going to get rid of the standings on everything else? Why not just go the full bore? What's the point of that? It's just very strange, you know.
Well, it gives the people that grind the standings kind of like a bastion, right? It gives you a
no,
bastion.
because those home systems don't have stations. I think one of them does. Like, not all the systems in Pochven have stations.
Gives you one bastion for the people who, you know, grinded all the standings, did everything to get there, right? It gives you a kind of, you know, one system that, you know, is yours.
I would love to be bubbled into one station in an entire region forever. Sounds fantastic.
Sounds like goons.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, you get Pochven on the queue. Come on.
Yeah.
Interesting takeaway. This is some interesting discussion that's going on. Do you guys think anything interesting is going to come out of this? Anything at all? As
Hopefully,
far as
it means
not
there's
like
going to be a huge amount of more constant combat, and it just remains to be seen
all the
if that
crabbers will
happens
leave.
or not.
Thank God.
Pochven's
Get 'em
going to
out
get
of
its
there.
increased population.
I honestly think that there'll be a
population.
drastic reduction in PvE income. Drastic reduction. And I think that outside of that, it's going to be constant space hell. You know, like,
Well, how much money
lots and
would
lots
you
and
make
lots
a
of people
month in
playing.
Pochven as a player?
I mean, just doing your napkin math, right? You know, I think if I remember correctly on the MER, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pochven and Wormhole Space were kind of like on par. And you were saying that, you know, it maxes out at 45, you know, 15 people per fleet, you said. So that's 45 people making the equivalent of the entirety of Wormhole Space. That seems a little extreme.
We looked into the metrics that we have, because I wrote an economic report for us of what we made as an alliance. And we only, even though we're the largest alliance in there, we made, for mostly for our players, because we only take a 5% tax, is about 450 billion across everyone in the alliance. That leads me to believe that something might be either askew or like missing from that, or added to that economic report. I'm wondering if it has to do with invasion systems in HiSec, because there are
counting loot
dread
in this?
sites. No, this is just from
this is just your alliance, though. This isn't.
And how many people is that total reward spread across? What's the average per? Yeah, what I mean, of the people who are actually partaking.
He said 45 at any.
Yeah, so the maximum you can have at one time is 45, but for us, it's 15 people per fleet. Like, you can't do more or less than that. If you have less than that, they make less money overall. If you have more than that, you make more money overall. And we do it so we can generate tax revenue, so we can actually like pay for fuel and things like that. But outside of that, it's, you know, you've got a maximum cap on the content in Pochven. You know, there's a maximum hard cap of players that can do the PvE content in there. We don't do 3 fleets at a time. We usually do 1 or 2.
For a fleet for one of those sites. 15 people.
It's about 200 million per person, unless the exploit is going on, which is a very real and current problem. We've lost about 65% of our revenue in the last month due to the exploit, and that is allowing those ticks to go down.
How long do they take to run?
About 15 minutes.
Oh my fucking God.
We've
That's
maximized
so much fucking money, dude.
I know.
Yeah,
we've
maximized.
Wait. You're not listening. It's not just 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes plus travel time. It's 15 minutes plus doing the PvP scouting. It's 15 minutes plus doing all of that stuff.
It's a fucking
significant
amount of ISK.
That's a bonkers amount of ISK, because like
it is. No, it is. No, absolutely.
So
here, I know that you guys are going to be like, "Oh my God, the ISK value is so high," and it is. It absolutely is. You know what I'd rather see in Pochven? I'd rather see them take money out of those dread sites and put them in something else, so that we can have more actual content in the systems. Because all we have is the dread sites. It's literally one thing. You do dreads or you do nothing for the PvE side of stuff.
Yeah.
They don't have relic sites. They don't have hacking sites. The other PvE sites pay out 6 million ISK total. Like,
But you keep
all you
running
have
them
is
because
dreads.
it's that bonkers amount of this.
Yep.
Like, okay,
That is
the only
100% what we
the
do.
only real PvE in wormhole space is going to be your green sites, right? That's all I ever do. But the difference is that I'm hard capped in the number of sites I can run based on my site spawn.
Yeah.
It's
I think the best way to
absolutely
look at it,
hard
though, is what I'm saying is I don't like it that way. I don't like that the dread sites pay so much money. I don't. I think that's actually awful. What I'd rather it have is drain some of the money out of that and make other content in Pochven so that there's other types of activities, a variety of activities that people can do that feel rewarded for that. Having all the ISK in one thing does this conversation. It makes no sense to make that much money off of one activity. It makes no sense to have that be infinitely repeatable. There needs to be something else going on in that region because it's literally
Like,
dread sites the game.
Infinitely repeatable.
Yeah, like that's my point. That's the
Take
difference. Like
Pochven out of the
wormhole,
game. This is ridiculous.
like don't get me wrong.
That's fucking insane.
Like just looking at the payout of a wormhole site by comparison, it's about on par, right?
Yep.
But I can't infinitely repeat. I can run maybe, I this week in my one hole I have I've had 6 sites, right? That's my entire week's worth of is generation.
I don't even
Well, this is
think the
infinitely
27 people are bringing like, oh, it's 3 sites and 27 systems. There are campers with 27 tunes who could just sit in a fucking station after the cloak changes and then just fucking undock and be like, oh, the new site's in here. Like, that's so fast. That's so much money, dude. Holy fuck, bro.
Yep.
What is
and
happening?
You can get through it. You can get through it, and you can fight the drifters, and you can fight Edencom, and you can fight the drones along the way, and you have fun because we've been doing it for months, and it's not as easy as you would think.
I mean, it doesn't really sound.
I mean,
like
do
it's
it.
That
What I'm saying is, go try it. Go try it and find out.
Well, I'm one guy. I don't think I can do it, but.
Well, Davey, something that sounds a little bit, the way that this might come across to a lot of people, which is something I'm trying to fight against myself, is that your main fear about this is the interruption of this huge amount of ISK per hour.
No,
yeah,
I frankly don't care about that. I've talked about this to our online members before. I don't want to be a crab empire. That sucks. That's bad for the game. It's not fun. Leads to attrition. Leads to a soft alliance where people roll you. I don't think that's fun at all. The main issue that I have with this change is that it disillusioned the players. I think that more PvP is good for the region. I think it makes harder, stronger, nastier Triglavians overall. I don't like that the players feel disillusioned. And I don't think that this was rolled out in a way that was respectful of the amount of investment that they put in. I don't care about the game mechanic side of it of losing ISK value on dread sites. I want dread sites to be reduced so that we have other content. I don't care about any of that.
Okay, but you have two negatives on the other side. Is number one, you have, like you've said, only 45 people at max can run these sites at any given time, right?
Yep.
And that's the same ISK generation as 4, 5, 6, 7 times as many people running all the sites in wormhole space at the same time.
Yes. So currently, that is what you have, like what you can do, without any standings. Previously, you needed up to 7.0 standings to get them when they land in the home systems.
So now you don't need the standings, and now these fleets can be adequately hunted, in my opinion, right? And even then, there's still ways to get out. You said the strategy as it is,
you
to
can use
keep the fleet out. So this is I can't see a situation where this is even remotely dangerous.
No, the problem that I have with it is that it pays out too much. Like I was saying, we need a variety of content. Because think about it this way, right? You're living in space and you can't go do Explo. You can't go do solo or small gang stuff other than just PvP, only PvP. Literally nothing else that you can do. There's a lot of players that want to do that kind of stuff, like other things than literally just go run dread sites, or other things than literally just go do PvP. They want to explore it. They want to learn more about the Triglavians. They want to go learn more about the lore between Trig and Edencom, forces. They can't do that right now. There's nothing in the rest of the region. It's literally dread sites the game. That's the problem that I have with it. And if they could drain money out of the dread sites to make them less profitable, to do this, great, fantastic. I would 100% welcome that, because it's stupid the way that it is. It's like taking every activity that could possibly exist and putting it into one activity in terms of payment, and then making that the only thing that's available.
Sorry, going back to an earlier thing we were talking about. I didn't see where you linked the battle report.
Oh, they're way
Oh.
way up there. They might be gone.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Sorry, it was in the Twitch chat. My bad.
Yeah, there's
I
like
missed that.
I've got like 5 of them here too.
Every,
Okay,
I looked at them. It's every few
oh.
days. There's quite an expensive one.
Sorry,
It looks
sorry.
Yeah.
My only question is it brawling with anybody but Rote?
Let me see. Let me see what these battle
It's
reports are. I'm
fucking-
waiting for this.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, you've got, let's see, Strybog Clade, Triglavian Unity, Darkside's in there, Worst Alliance Ever, Hard Knocks. Who else? Who's in this one? Castle Kickers, Goon Swarm, Good Sax, Strybog Clade, Rote Capel, Rote Works. So yeah, there's quite a lot of different people. We get a lot, most of the people that we get fighting in here are Russians. They super like being out here because they come a Russian group. Rote Capel is a big player because they came from the outside and actually came in and did some really cool stuff. And then wormhole groups. Wormhole groups pop in here all the time. In fact, a lot of wormhole groups that we've been catching are ones that filament in to escape, and then we jump on their fleet. So we've seen that happen a couple of times, or other people will jump on their fleet. There is quite a bit of PvP in here in a way that, to me, felt like a pretty healthy area. The only unhealthy thing that I saw out here was the amount of ISK generated from the dread sites and the
Okay, I'm sorry. We're so all of these battle reports are fighting over the PvE sites, not like you said, dropping on people or anything like
some
that.
of them are dropping on people. Some of them are going out and hunting each other in PvP fleets. Like, people do roams and stuff out here all the time.
For sure, but I was just more curious about how often these fleets are dropped, because like I can bring up a comparison for.
There you go. They're all in chat now.
Oh, cool.
Thanks, Maldavius.
Yeah, we've also had major engagements in here. We actually went and punched FRT in the face not too long ago because we wanted to generate some content, see what would happen. Sometimes you got to, go punch your neighbor and see how it's going to go. We had over 150 people on grid for that. We got our Tatara down into Hull. We ended up diploing it out so that they wouldn't wipe us off the map, but we had a ton of fun doing it. Bringing these massive engagements, these 200-man engagements between, 2 major groups like this was very fun. And we loved that kind of stuff. So it wasn't just crabbing online. That's boring, and it
But
honestly,
the players that are
crabbing
leaving
leads to
now are the
losing
people
space.
who are making that they don't want more people in there. They don't want
It's-
to get invaded, right?
Sure, there's going to be people that do that. There's going to be people that go, you know what, we don't want to be in here. We don't want to, deal with the hassle of not crabbing. I don't want those people here anyway. What I'd rather have is people that want to do PvP and engage with the content. There are still going to be players that feel disillusioned from this, that are heavily invested in trig content, that don't care about, just the PvE site stuff, that are leaving. That are ones that go, I don't even want to sign in. I'm going to end my sub. Like, the thing is we're on the front lines of that as the largest Triglavian alliance. All of the either people deal with us when they're in Pochven, or we have the players that are in Pochven in our alliance. So I have to sit here and look at our Discord and see all the messaging that people are giving. And the general consensus is, cool, we get more PvP, but why the hell did I grind standings? I hate CCP.
Chat's getting upset, dude.
Yeah.
This
About what?
is a hot dude. They're just getting
I know
upset.
it's hot.
Look at
That's
them.
fine.
They're getting grumpy, man.
And
It's good
they're
that people are
posting the
talking about
3.1
this.
trill, right? They're posting the 3.1 trill. We didn't make 3.1 trillion. I would lose my mind if we
Well,
did.
not
Like,
you.
That's insane.
That's not you specifically. That's the wealth
That's
that was
everyone.
generated
Yeah.
in there, right?
No, it's everyone.
Um,
It's everyone. But the thing is since we're the largest power in the region, people will come to us and go, "You made 3.1 trillion." I was like, "Dude, I wish." Yeah. What? No, I made 6.2 trillion.
Yeah,
It-
but just the napkin math of that
Yeah.
just feels bonkers.
It does. No, it is. Agree.
Well,
I agree.
Maldavius has already said he doesn't like how big the payouts are for him. I think one of my bigger issues right now in general with the game, and this is a really dumb thing of me to say, but people are gonna get upset. I don't like the amount of wealth that's generated inside of Pochven and wormholes, because despite it all, I think the logistics of getting blue loot moved, and I imagine Pochven, where you literally have filaments that can take you to a victory or whatever, seem just logistically much easier than it sounds like. There should be the downside. Maybe I'm wrong. I could very well be. But
Honestly, like, I'll give you a really good example. The raw ISK payout of these sites is so high that people don't even loot the field afterwards because they can make more money by going to the next site as quickly as possible. That is a problem. That's
Sorry.
a problem.
So real quick point of clarification. You said you were able to calculate how much you made based off of the taxes, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So just to clarify, it is exclusively your corp running in your fleets. Is that correct?
No. So we have Strybog Clade, which is a number of different corporations. So that's our alliance.
Sorry,
And
is it exclusively your alliance running in your PvE fleets?
exclusively our alliance? No. We have other people that run out in there that are allies and things like that as well. And I can't see the metrics for those people. However,
Okay.
in our fleets, we are the majority of the fleet on every one of those.
All right. So the raw ISK generation from your alliance on your PvE fleets is going to be higher than what you said.
Yep.
Okay.
But not dramatically higher, not 6 times higher or something like that.
Okay.
That's why I'm wondering. Like, I'm wondering what CCP pulled for those metrics. Because the thing is, it says Triglavian invasion, right? Like Triglavian content. That could be anything. And there's also Edencom sites that we don't run in Pochven. Those are called world arcs. We can't do those because they tank our Triglavian standing. It's stuff that we don't like doing. This is, it'll damage our standings for the trigs. Now, I guess it doesn't, frankly, matter. But yeah, that's something we didn't do before. And those ones actually drop other stuff. They drop different drops and they pay out different payouts. Then there's the dread sites that spawn in high seg. Those are the ones in the Edencom fortress systems. That's still technically Triglavian content. Did they add that to the economic report? I don't know.
I think it was region locked in the MER, or was it?
I don't think so. It said Triglavian content, I believe. Someone could pull that up because, like, it definitely did not say Pochven on the economic report.
So again, this is just my ignorance about the ins and outs of the PvE. Is this a bounty system you're obtaining?
It's raw ISK. It just pays it out to everybody who's
okay. So it is just
something. Yeah.
Just raw ISK goes into okay.
Yep. It's raw ISK goes into wallet, but the problem is, and this is the big issue, if you hit something, even if you're not part of the fleet with the highest amount of damage, like you can be in incursions, yeah, you still get a payout.
Yeah, but I think we've classified that under the 2 bugs that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And well, that's one of the reasons I'm thinking that having this increased population is really going to help you out, because it gets these bugs taken care of quicker. It gets on the radar quicker because you have more
I'm
people.
hoping so. As an alliance, we've put in over 100 bug reports for this over the last 2 months. We've also put in numerous tickets about it because players who are doing it are, making memes out of it and be like, haha, we're stealing. We're the tax man. We're taking your stuff. Like it's like it's sort of ridiculous because the players who are having this happen to them, they're like, wow, this is literally just an exploit. There's no counterplay to this. There's no PvP to this. We're not actually fighting over the site. It's just a dude uncloaking, stealing money, and then recloaking. Like, that's pretty trash. So, like, I wish that CCP was faster on this kind of stuff, especially with the amount of, push that we've done. But frankly, we're the little guy. Like, the Triglavian movement is a smaller number of players than, say, a null block. We don't have the sway or pull that other groups do. And that feels quite bad, considering what's going on. And honestly, if Pochven was created in a way that it wasn't a single, like, PvE site ISK faucet, if it wasn't just dread sites that can fuel all of the income of the region, this wouldn't be an issue. Like, that honestly, that exploit wouldn't even matter because people would be able to do other things like hacking and scanning and doing all the other types of sites that they could have out there. Even if the other PvE sites were bumped up and the dread sites were brought down, I think the region would have been healthier.
Okay.
Oh, no. The people laughing in chat, there is no counterplay. And the reason why is because they're in a malediction 5,000 kilometers away. And the moment that the site is about to complete, they uncloak, steal a tick, and then recloak, and they still get the money. How do you have counterplay to that? Good luck,
Because you can't probe and warp to people on a dead space grid.
Yep, you got nothing.
So yeah, it is. It does sound like an exploit. I don't think that's really a question.
No. Yeah, and what they'll do is
they could just go 7 kilometers a second and cloak a few hundred kilometers away if they do get chased magically as well.
And they put 5 to 10 of those alts in sites. We call it worming the site. So, like, it's full of worms already. If we go into the site and we go, oh, it's probably full of worms, and then you go to get your payout, and instead of getting 200 mil, you get, between 20 and 50 mil per pilot. Now, obviously, that's still quite a lot of ISK, that is a ton of ISK to do that kind of stuff, but it's the only content generator in there. So if someone came into one of your systems and said, I'm taking 75% of your payout on your content, and laughing at you about it. How does it make you feel as a player? That's the issue behind that kind of stuff. And there's nothing you can do about it. You actually can't stop it. There's no actual counterplay to that. Dropping out 5,000 kilometers away at a cloak and stealing your stuff.
And to comment on what Acid Rainy is saying in chat, yeah, okay, you can catch people that do dumb stuff. You can catch people that do dumb stuff, like forget to set their thing red and try to filament. You can catch those people, but in the perfect scenario where they do what they're supposed to do, it is uncatchable, and that's the metric you have to judge by. Where if so, like it's the same metric as a filament, right? If you have 5 people all land at the same time and then immediately filament, there's absolutely no way to catch them. If they do this bug, there's absolutely no way to catch them. If they do it properly.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the case. That's really it. There are people that still do dumb things. In fact, some of them actually do dumb things because they thought it was really, the exploit was kind of stupid. I've talked to a couple of the guys doing this, as they call it, seaguling, the thing that they do. It's like stealing, your food from the beach. Yeah, I've talked to a few of them and they thought it was stupid, so they started trying to give counterplay to it. But there's still dozens and dozens and dozens of these alts that are out there just doing this constantly. And it's effectively, it's just toxic, really, at the end of the day.
Sorry, another question about the PvE.
Sure.
So what else drops from the site? What is it that actually drops?
So what ends up happening is you kill the dread. The dread creates a no warp bubble around it, about 30 kilometers. You have to kill the thing. You destroy its red. But it gives a token. That token can be turned into a cache that the Zernitra spawns. That spawned cache then gives you a package, and if you open it, it gives you a bunch of LP store tokens, which we generally split between all of the members of the fleet evenly. And it gives you either skill books to be able to pilot the Zernitra, or skill book to use the Zernitra's gun. That's what it is. That's the whole thing. They used to give blueprints back during Invasion Phase 3, like blueprints for the Zernitra and things like that. They don't do that anymore. It just gives the skill books. So that is extra loot, and that is extra loot that we distribute to the fleet members. The LP store tokens are large, so you have to not only get all of those tokens, you have to protect that fleet while they have them. You have to usually wait to the last fleet of the day, like the last dread site you're going to do, maybe 5 of them at a time, get all the packages, and then get it home before someone tries to drop on you for it. So there is something that is an engagement factor there that's really interesting. I like that part of it, where it's like, we have all these valuables, we need to get them home. That's a conflict driver. That's cool. I actually do enjoy that. I think that's very good.
I mean that is a cool thing then about wormhole space, right? You have the blue loot, right? I've known dozens and dozens and dozens of people that just sit in high-class sites or high-class wormholes waiting for people to crab in their little, buzzard or whatever, and they steal the drifter loot out from whoever's running it. And then, 300 mil. And I think that's great. But so what you're saying is there's also additional payout in addition to the raw bounty. So the ISK is even.
The big problem to me is that raw bounty is too high, and there's no other content in the region. No other effective payout content. What they honestly should do, like I keep saying, is reduce the raw ISK value and give us something else to do. Give us something else other than just dreads. I know it's a lot of people are like, oh God, why would he complain about such massive raw ISK? Dude, it is toxic to have to do the exact same thing every single day as the only source of income and have it plagued with an exploit.
I don't know, sir. I run dreadnoughts in wormhole space, so
some people like it. That's not everybody that doesn't like it.
I don't do it because I enjoy it. I do it because it gets me IS that I can then use to PvP. So I mean, that's the point. People are doing it because it's still worth it to them, and they're making gobs and gobs of money doing it.
Yeah, as people are talking in chat, like agents, relic and data sites, maybe bump up the other PvE sites, because the small PvE sites, you need about $1 billion on grid in ISK, and they pay 6 mil. Why do those even exist? Actually ridiculous. Yeah, there should be options. That's how I feel about it.
Just again, sorry, curious. About how much is that dread payout for killing the dread?
Like I said, it's about 200 million per pilot. If no.
Oh, okay, yeah, but that's the raw ISK. But how much for the dreadnoughts? The
book?
Yeah, or sorry, the actual loot that you're picking up. How much you think that is?
So the Dreadnought book itself is about 250 million if you sell it in JITA right now. That price has gone down through the course of the invasion. It used to be about 6 billion during Invasion Phase 3, so it's rapidly declining. Most of those books we stockpile and give to pilots inside of our alliance that are ready to fly as Zernitra. Most of them we don't sell.
Someone in chat said,
we've tried,
said the loot box from the Dread is worth between 200 and 900 mil. So that's
No, not 900 mil.
No?
Not at all. Like the tokens
Okay.
themselves only have a G to buy of about 7,000. You have to use those tokens in order to buy Zunitras. You need about 500,000 of the tokens to buy a Zunitra, and that's about 10 dread sites worth of the tokens, and they're huge.
Yeah, so I mean that goes back to my questions. I'm just curious how much actually looting that dread is worth, and if people are doing it, if it's not worth it.
I would say between about 200 and 300 million in
Okay,
total,
so-
because you don't always get the same books. You don't always get the good book. Like if you get the gun book, it's worth like 80 or 70 mil. You know, if you get the Dreadnought book, it's worth like 250 mil. So like random luck in there, it's like 200 to 300 million. And yeah, the Dread Wreck Warp scrams. I think that was meant to like be a conflict driver where it's like everyone's scrammed in a radius, but you just shoot the wreck and it goes away. It's just like whatever.
So someone said that the Dreadnought bubble doesn't scram.
No, it just it stops you from warping. Sorry.
Okay,
it's
so it's
a
just
disruption
just a
bubble. Yeah.
Damn, and here I was thinking CCP could add ESS bubbles to PvE. So,
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
no.
actually a really good
Like-
idea. I think as soon as you warp to a sanctum, you should get ESS bubbled for like
Like,
600
I've-
kilometers.
Jesus.
I have desperately
Fuck.
wanted that for the Drifter and
Goddamn
Wormhole
warp core
space.
stab looking ass.
If the Drifter and Wormhole space could put up like a scram bubble around it, oh, that would be so good. I would
So
love
here's
that.
the thing, Oren, of all the things that, because you've asked a lot of questions about, how I feel about the
Of course.
space and things like that. What would you change? If you, considering all the information that you have now and like what it is to like, how the things that I've explained of living in this space, what would you change to make this space more healthy?
What would I do? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Again, I don't live there, so I don't know the personal feelings of the people that actually live there. But I think that increasing the PvP is definitely the number one thing. But it's going to have to play out in the MER whether or not people continue on with the PvE and whether or not these changes have nuked it to a degree that people won't do it. If I could make some changes to Pochven, I would add secondary sites. Data relic sites is a perfect example. Something like that. Something that they can scan down to maybe drop some more Icky Tursa components. Because I would love increased Icky Tursa production, please.
Yeah.
So maybe having you're saying that grinding the standings isn't worth it. Having some sort of mission system with the trigs, right? Having some sort of mission system, I think, would be great. And that would then make make this grinding the standings worth it, because then you can run the missions that are probably pretty lucrative. It gets you access to more LP, it gets you access to more other things, and it's more individualized, so you don't need the 15 people to do anything.
Yeah, like as an example, I talked about the the anchorages in the home systems. This is massive, massive, cool Triglavian structure. It's a fidget spinner. It does nothing. It literally just sits there in space like a big dead weight. Why does that not have something that's side of it? Maybe they'll add something to that later. Maybe it'll have something cool. But like that kind of stuff seems like a really big missed opportunity to me. It's not even a station. You can't even dock in the thing.
But we don't know. We don't know if it is actually a missed opportunity, because maybe it's just not done yet, right? And this is where the increased population comes in again, right? You have people going through this space. You have people using this space. So CCP necessarily would be willing to dedicate more man hours the more people that engage with it. So if it's just some, on the whole, having only 500 accounts, however many real people that is, in a section of space, isn't going to necessitate massive man hours from CCP. But as soon as that number bumps up to 2,000, 3,000 accounts,
I don't know that
after
logic
account
holds true,
upgraded.
considering that
Yeah,
missions haven't been touched in 12 years. Now, partly that's because the fact that they were hard coded into the game, and they're now building a modular system to allow junior devs to be able to create mission content. So there's a technical hurdle there, but HiSec is where the majority of those missions exist. And again, how many people live in HiSec and they haven't touched it? It hasn't been a priority before now.
Also, I'd like to say, extra squishy. Nice try getting into Weird Shota. Gotcha.
He's gonna get you next time, dude.
Yeah, we just got him, dude.
Oh shit, he's gonna come shit talk me now, dude. Like, oh, DTM, you're going down. No, I'm just.
I mean, we're always gonna fight the space,
You better be careful. He has access to this channel, dude. You can come in here.
That's
He'll yell
fine.
at you. I just start seeing you disconnect. He just keeps disconnecting you from the Discord channel.
No, I love that, dude. See, the thing is like you were saying, it's good to have more PvP in here. We get to have this kind of stuff. We get to fight other people that we know. That's cool. I like that. The problem that we're having is it's
Okay.
bad for our player morale.
I gotta
just
ask
having
this.
them stripped away.
I've seen this posted like 20 times. Mr. Deegan keeps saying, what about removing the connections between Ota and Nav, Engi and Vale, Harva and Rara? This makes it so that people like me who don't have trig standings can only access one side of the triangle at a time. Then you have to try and filament or wormhole to the other sides. Then they who bought in can still freely travel and have an advantage on getting to the sites.
I think that's quite cool. The thing is the way that the system is set up into 3 different cries or, sub-regions. Those cries are like Cry Velis, Cry Perun, Cry, this is how they work. They're the 3 different sections of the Triglavian forces that are technically in constant war with each other as approving. If they could lock those 3 between each other and make it so that you needed standings to go through those 3 different large sections, that'd be fine. I think that's a cool walkback, honestly. Making it all completely accessible, it just removes anything that any player that ground for any of this game,
Right. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up? Anything else they want to talk about? We were talking for quite a while, and if we don't have anything else to chat about, we can start closing out the show.
I think the last thing that I'll say is one of the things that we really haven't talked about, and the main danger to all of this, Pochven in general was a subcap PvP haven, and it was away from the ownership of massive blocks in nullsec. They could have come in and done capital support to suppress it. They could have run in with a massive amount of numbers because they couldn't because of the standings. Now any of them can come in, filament tons and tons of players in rapidly after buying those filaments out of Jita and completely glass the entire thing. We had a space that was safe from that, and it's not anymore. Safe in the way that it was a unique space that was offering a different type of gameplay for different types of players, and that's lost now.
I have a question, actually.
Sure.
You've talked a lot about the investment in the story and the lore and the community and all the reasons for living in Pochven and Triglavian space before these changes happen today.
Yep.
Continuing that thread, what is the Triglavian content that you would love to see from CCP as the developing story arc for the Triglavians and Edencom? Because we've got a number of candidates who are running for CSM who are very focused on story and reinvigorating the importance of lore and hoping to have CCP respond to that, although we've seen the history of how they respond to those kinds of requests. We get a chronicle maybe once or twice a year. We're lucky if we get any kind of nascent development, unless it's part of a big release. But for your dreams to be fulfilled, what does the future for Triglavian space look like?
Honestly, what I'd like to see is a couple of different things. I want more content for the Edencom players. I want them to have a reason to come to Pochven to fight us. Maybe that's an invasion content thing, maybe it's an NPC push, maybe it's something that they get that gives them an incentive to come fight the players that are aligned with Triglavians. We had a great red versus blue relationship. It was cool. It was fun. It let us feel like we were part of something that was greater than ourselves and part of something that was greater than any alliance or any group outside of that. That was very fun. It's very engaging. The other thing that I'd like to do is have some way for newer players to learn about Triglavian and Edencom forces. They have nothing like that right now. You fly through HiSec, you may find a system that's owned by Triglavians as a minor victory. You may find, Edencom, but know what's going on. Implementing something like an epic arc in order to introduce those two factions, give them understanding of what they are, give them a chance to choose a side after they understand what those two factions mean, would be huge for bringing new players into this content and explaining what it is to them and, having that engagement. Otherwise, it's just going to fall into disrepair and people just won't know what it is if they're new. And I think that's kind of sad. The last thing that I would do is in each one of the home systems, there is a third gate. That third gate currently does nothing. Maybe CCP has a plan for it to do something else, but our anticipation is maybe there is another system that it will connect to or another thing that it will connect to. I want to see that happen, and I want to see the anchorages be a part of that and be some kind of interactable structure, maybe with missions, maybe with something else. And then outside of that, like I was saying, more content in Pochven. Give us relic sites, give us data sites. Let those relic and data sites tell us a story about, the Triglavians, or tell us a story about Edencom. Give us something to learn more about them, because all we have right now is space that has nice, weird, pretty suns, dread sites, and nothing else. And that is depressing.
And this is where the increased population comes in, because then CCP is just willing to dedicate more. So.
Yep.
All right. Fantastic. Maldavius, White Orchid, Phantomite, Jarius, Orin, thank you guys so much for coming out. Guys, make sure, if you're watching this on YouTube, go down below. You're going to find all their CSM campaign posts. If you're watching on Twitch right now live, make sure to go to CSM campaign forums and check them out. Guys, if you want to link your campaign posts in Twitch chat, this is the time to do it right now. These guys are the only reason most of you are here, but I appreciate you showing up anyways. And I appreciate the guests showing up as well. It's been a really fun conversation. It's been a good one.
Actually good at short notice for something so fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all just raw conversation, right? Because we're only 4 hours.
yeah.
In. There was no real way to prepare.
Yeah.
DTML messaged us like 2 hours before.
So Maldavius messaged me. He's like, I don't like this change. I was like, all right, well, we can get on show and talk about it with some other people. He's like, okay. Well,
These are the best kinds of conversations, honestly.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll find a way to adapt. Right now, it's mostly just players are very frustrated, and I understand that. And I'm here to speak for them, for our guys.
all right. We'll see you later, chat. Peace.
Yeah.